That day on the subway, no one helped, but those silent, empty stares would change his life forever. Lucas stared at his reflection in the window of the Berlin U-Bahn. He had trimmed his beard recently, pulled his hood over his head, but he still couldn't hide the exhaustion in his eyes, and there was something he didn't know yet. In the crowded carriage, no one looked at anyone. Between headphones, phone screens, and the fake happiness in the ads, everyone seemed locked inside their own bubble. Lucas clutched his laptop bag tightly, calculating the time for his evening prayer, when suddenly the door chimed. Before the doors closed, a middle-aged man who was clearly drunk stumbled inside. His hair was messy, his face flushed, his jacket half unzipped. The tattoos on his arm hinted at some football hooligan group, and when his phone rang, his life would change. As the man scanned the carriage, his eyes caught the thin chain around Lucas's neck. At the end of it hung a small crescent and star pendant. It only took seconds for him to realize Lucas was Muslim. The alcohol on his breath felt like an invisible thread spreading through the silent carriage, and the fear in his eyes. He stepped forward, and the other passengers instinctively pulled away. Lucas looked down to avoid eye contact, but the man's voice filled the entire carriage. "All our problems are because of people like you. This is our country. You hear me?" he shouted, spitting out the German words. But there was something he didn't know yet. Lucas's heart raced. He knew he needed to stay calm. He quietly whispered a prayer. Lowering his voice, he said, "Please don't shout. I'm just trying to get home from work." His tone was gentle, but hiding the rising anger was hard. And then the door chimed again. The man stepped even closer, poking Lucas in the chest. "Before you people came, this place wasn't like this. Our women weren't scared. They could walk the streets at night. Now we're not even safe on the subway." The carriage was dead silent. Everyone heard it, but no one spoke. When the phone rang, everything would change. Lucas felt the cold window behind him. He had nowhere left to move. Inside, a voice echoed, "What would you do?" It was a question to the entire world. This was an injustice that could happen to anyone. The fear in the man's eyes. But the most shocking part, no one stepped in. Not the man in the suit, not the older woman, not the girl gripping her phone. They all watched from the corners of their eyes, hiding behind the wall of, "This is not my problem." The weight of loneliness pressed physically on Lucas's shoulders, but there was something he didn't know yet. The man raised his voice again. "This isn't everyone." The man raised his voice again. "You know, I watched the news last night, another attack by people like you. You come here but don't respect our values." Lucas swallowed the lump in his throat. "I was born here," he said softly, his voice trembling. "I'm part of this city, too." His words were the fragile cry of a heart defending its identity. And then the door chimed. The man laughed a harsh, mocking laugh. "You, part of this city?" he said. "You'll always be a foreigner, born here or not. We will never accept you." The carriage felt colder. People were too afraid even to make eye contact. When the phone rang, everything would change. But the most shocking part, a young woman standing near the yellow safety lines, light-colored eyes, thin glasses, looking like she had just left work, clenched her fists. She lowered her head. She wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. She, too, had once been powerless, but she didn't know yet. The man kicked Lucas's bag. It fell to the floor, the metal of his laptop clattering loudly. People flinched, but no one moved. Lucas's eyes flashed for a second, anger, humiliation, fear all rising together. He wanted to say enough. His lips moved, but no sound came out. And then the door chimed. This is the moment everything changed. The man leaned even closer, spitting as he yelled, "Because of people like you, the party I voted for can't control anything anymore. Because of you." At that moment, the train swayed, slowing down as if braking. An announcement played, but no one heard the words in the frozen tension. The young woman finally couldn't take it anymore. In a shaky but audible voice, she said, "Leave him alone." The man turned for the first time. "What?" She took a breath. "Didn't you hear me? Leave him alone. What did he do to you?" Her voice shook, but there was a spark of courage behind it. When the phone rang, everything would change. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet. Some passengers lifted their heads. The same eyes that had only watched now showed small hints of movement. The man in the suit straightened up. A young guy pulled out his earbuds. Everyone silently asked themselves, what would you do? But there was something they didn't know yet. The man scoffed. "Oh, so you're taking his side now," he said. "This country is falling apart, and you still—" Just then, another passenger, middle-aged, loosened tie, thinning hair, stood up. "Enough," he said. "The kid didn't do anything. Sit down." His words hit the carriage like a blunt reality check, and the door chimed. Lucas felt like he was watching from outside his own body. The tiny signs of support cracked the wall of loneliness inside him. But another question echoed in his heart. What did this silence do to all of you? The weight of isolation still sat heavy. When the phone rang, everything would change. But the most shocking part, the man looked around angrily. "Are you all crazy?" he yelled. "You're defending a terrorist right in front of your eyes." "Terrorist" echoed through the carriage. Several people flinched. Lucas felt something burn inside, as if his identity, his faith, his very name had been dragged through the mud. A war ignited inside him. Anger or patience? Fight back or stay silent? But he didn't know yet. Wait, don't miss this part. Lucas finally spoke for the first time with a steady voice. "I'm a software engineer," he said. "I was born in Berlin. I pay taxes. I contribute to this city, this country. I just want to go home." That simple sentence changed the entire atmosphere. This was an injustice that could happen to anyone, to be judged by identity, labeled without being known, and the fear in the man's eyes. The young woman turned to the man beside her. "You see, we have to say something," she said. The reason she was calm now was a documentary she saw years ago. A child on a bus facing racism while everyone stayed silent, and then the door chimed. An older man sitting in the corner pushed himself up with his cane, pointing a trembling finger at the attacker. "Young man," he said, "I watched people in this city be crushed because of who they were during World War II, and now you're doing the same. Shame on you." His voice was slow but sharp as a blade. When the phone rang, everything would change. "You haven't seen anything yet." As the train approached the next station, an announcement played. "Next stop, Alexanderplatz." A wave of tension swept through the carriage. What will happen when the doors open? Hung in the air, but there was something they didn't know yet. The attacker noticed the shift in the crowd. It was no longer just him versus the other. It was him versus everyone. The carriage was slowly uniting around a few brave voices. A small but crucial breaking point. What would you do? And the door chimed. The train stopped. The doors slid open. Cold air rushed in. Some passengers rushed out. Others chose to stay. The security cameras recorded everything silently. Who held the footage of this racist attack? No one had thought of that yet. When the phone rang, everything would change. As security officers approached, Lucas suddenly felt a hand on his shoulder. The young woman touched him gently. "Are you okay?" she asked, her eyes filled with worry and guilt. "I should have spoken sooner. I should have said something earlier," she whispered, but she didn't know yet. Two security officers stepped in. With their yellow vests and serious expressions, they scanned the carriage. Everyone held their breath. The attacker straightened up, pointed at Lucas, and yelled, "He threatened me," the fear in his eyes. "You still haven't seen the biggest surprise." One officer said calmly, "Let's all stay calm." He looked around. "Can someone tell me what happened?" This was the moment everything changed. The question tested the conscience of the entire carriage. Silence. Then the young woman stepped forward. She said, pointing at the attacker, kept insulting this young man, used racist slurs, kicked his bag. He was just standing there. Her fragile voice grew firm, but she didn't know yet. The middle-aged man stood too. Yes, he said. I saw everything. He called him a terrorist, insulted him because of his identity. The kid tried to stay calm. The old man tapped his cane. I've seen hate like this before, he said. I know where it leads. Don't let it happen again. The officer's expression changed. He turned to the attacker. You need to come with us, he said firmly. The man looked around in disbelief. The approval he expected wasn't there. For the first time, the silence of the majority was defeated by the courage of a few. When the phone rang, everything would change. The attacker protested. This is ridiculous. I was just... The officer cut him off. Enough. Please come with us. The other officer touched his radio, murmuring a short report, passenger safety protocol, but he didn't know yet. As security approached, the attacker was escorted out. The doors shut again. The train moved. Silence filled the carriage, not the silence of fear, but the silence of what had just happened, and the fear in the man's eyes. Lucas took a long breath. His hands still trembled. The young woman asked again, Are you really okay? Lucas forced a smile. You get used to it, he said bitterly. It's not the first time. His words cut into everyone's heart like a thin knife. This was an injustice any of us could face, but he didn't know yet. You won't believe this. As they approached the next station, the middle-aged man pulled a business card from his pocket. I'm a lawyer, he said, handing it to Lucas. If you want to report this, I can help. It's important that these incidents are documented. A line spoken quietly, yet it was the entrance of the man who would save him, and then the door chimed. Lucas looked at the card. Daniel Weber, human rights attorney. His eyes widened. Seriously? Daniel nodded. Yes. The more these things get ignored, the more they happen. We can get the camera footage. File a complaint. You're not alone. His calm words reshaped the air in the carriage. When the phone rang, everything would change. Wait, don't miss this detail. The young woman pulled out her phone. I recorded it, she said. Not from the very beginning, but most of it. If you want, I can send it to you. It might help. Lucas's eyes welled up. The people who had felt like strangers moments ago were now offering support. A painful paradox. Help didn't come when he needed it most, but only after everything ended. But he didn't know yet. The train entered the station. The announcement played again, but everyone heard one quiet question in their mind. What would you do? The fear in the man's eyes. As security approached, instead of getting off, Lucas turned to Daniel. Let's go to the station office, he said. I want to report this. He could feel the sense of justice rising inside him. For a moment he worried. What if my boss finds out? But he didn't know yet. Daniel remained calm but firm. He seemed to think he only had 10 minutes or everything would be gone, because the footage system auto-deleted after a certain amount of time. If they didn't act now, the evidence would disappear. This was his last chance. And then the door chimed. They walked into a small office at the station. The security supervisor sat at a desk. Monitors showed live camera feeds. Daniel introduced himself, explained the incident, pointed to Lucas. The young woman walked in too, ready with her video. When the phone rang, everything would change. But the most shocking part, the supervisor seemed dismissive at first. These things happen a lot, he said with a shrug. I don't want to get into messy reports, police forms, procedures. His words were the classic reflection of normalized silence, racism being treated like just another annoyance, but he didn't know yet. Daniel adjusted his glasses. Listen, he said. This wasn't a small argument. This was hate speech and a racist attack. We are filing a formal complaint with video and camera footage. By law, you must preserve these recordings. If you don't, that's another violation. If you don't ARFOD, that's another violation. That changed the supervisor's expression. He turned to the monitors. What time was this? Lucas tried to remember. The young woman checked the timestamp on her video, and then the door chimed. You haven't seen anything yet. The recordings played. From the ceiling camera, the scene unfolded in black and white. The attacker entering, approaching Lucas, poking him, kicking his bag. Everything visible, undeniable. And the document that would change everything. The supervisor frowned. This is more serious than I thought, he said. All right, I'll preserve these recordings for the report. We can share them with the police. In Lucas's eyes, a spark of hope appeared, something he hadn't felt in a long time, but he didn't know yet. You won't believe this. That night, Lucas went home and lay on his bed. He covered his face with his hands. He prayed. His tears soaked the pillow. He thought about the humiliation and about the people who, even if late, stood with him. The weight of loneliness lifted slightly, but the wound was still fresh. And then the door chimed. A notification cut through the silence. A message from the young woman, Emma. Did you get home safe? She wrote. I'm sorry I spoke so late today. I promise if I ever see something like that again, I won't stay silent. When the phone rang, everything changed. Lucas stared at the screen for a moment. Thank you, he replied. Speaking up at all was enough. Maybe what matters most is that someone finally said, enough. But the most shocking part. The next day at work, sitting at his desk, he received an email. Subject, Official Complaint Process and Support, Daniel Weber. The email detailed the legal steps and his rights. At the bottom was one final sentence. This isn't just your fight. It's a test we all must face together in this city. And the words on that document would change everything. But he didn't know yet. When he answered the phone, 2 days later, Lucas's phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, am I speaking with Lucas Mueller? The voice was familiar, but he couldn't place it. Yes, this is Lucas, he said cautiously. The voice continued. End quote. This is Anna Schneider from the Berlin Transport Authority. We received your official complaint. We reviewed the camera footage. We'd like to meet with you to clarify some details. We also plan to use this incident as a case study in our internal training with your permission. The voice was familiar, but Lucas's eyes widened. That night, lying in bed, he had thought, this will happen to me, and then it will be forgotten. But now his story had the potential to touch the conscience of an entire city. What would you do? Stay silent? And we have today, said Saval. After stay.